Hi everyone, my name is Morgan Frost and I am a third year PhD student in the biology department, and I'm super excited to share a bit about a research project that I'm doing in the beautiful grasslands of Montana in order to understand how invasive species are changing our native communities. So when I say invasive species, you might think about the murder hornets that have been all over last year's news. But while invasive grass species might not immediately come to mind, these species, like what's circled in red here in this picture, still cause major damage to our important grassland ecosystems. Invasive species wreak havoc in nearly every ecosystem on the planet, costing billions of dollars in damages every single year. Grasslands are ecosystems with continuous grass cover, and they constitute nearly 40% of the surface of the earth, which you can see outlined here in green in this map. Further, rangelands are areas of land that we use to graze our livestock, and they cover nearly 36% of the United States alone. And much of this distribution overlaps with our grasslands, which you can see circled in red here in this picture. Rangelands are highly important ecosystems. Aside from giving us food for our livestock, rangelands are also home to a large variety of species, meaning that they are super biodiverse. However, rangelands are threatened by invasive species. Overall, my research focuses on understanding the impacts of invasive grass species on rangeland communities. And this includes not just impacts on the other plant species, but also on other parts or communities of the food web, or what we call different trophic levels, such as the insects and soil bacteria. We need to understand how invasive species impact many rangeland communities in order to continue using our rangelands for the long term. So in this talk, I'm specifically going to discuss one of my field research projects in the rangelands of Montana. There, I have an experimental project set up to understand how invasion by an understudied grass species called Bromus arvensis impacts our rangeland communities. Bromus arvensis is a C3 winter annual species that was intentionally introduced to the United States over 100 years ago, and it has since spread all over our rangelands. But even though this species is really widespread and well established, it's not really known how it impacts the different trophic levels that I previously mentioned. And so that's why I developed this project. So in Montana, I have plots set up along natural invasion gradients, meaning that they range in invasion abundance from low to high invasion by Bromus arvensis. And last summer, I sampled the plant, insect, and soil microbial communities, as well as several abiotic or environmental variables to constitute my pre-treatment or baseline data, which I will compare to the data that I collect from this summer. Then this past October, I sprayed an herbicide to remove Bromus arvensis from half of my plots. And then this summer, I will recollect all of the different trophic level and abiotic data to see how the community changes in response to invasion removal. Recovery of this ecosystem after invasion will play a key role in understanding both how Bromus arvensis causes changes to rangelands and how rangelands are able to bounce back after invasion removal. So here are some of my preliminary results from the pre-treatment plant community data. On the x-axis, we have increasing invasion abundance, ranging from 0% to 100% of Bromus arvensis. And then on the left, we can see that as invasion abundance increases, plant species richness, which is the number of plant species in a plot, significantly decreases. Similarly, as invasion by Bromus arvensis increases, the cover or abundance of the native plant species significantly decreases. And while this is not particularly surprising, this drop in native species is of concern for the forage or food that is available for our livestock, which is important because livestock typically prefer the nutrition associated with native plant species. While this project is still in progress, It can already help us inform land managers and stakeholders on how best to manage their range long term. So for example, on heavily invaded areas, ranchers may graze livestock more intensely while Bromus arvensis is still growing earlier in the season, whereas they may graze less intensely later in the season when the native species are growing in order to allow the native community time to recover. Understanding how invasion changes our landscapes will allow ranching practices to adapt while upholding the highest quality forage possible and simultaneously protecting our native biodiversity and numerous other things that our rangelands provide. I'd like to thank my advisor, Dr. Sally Kerner, for her support, as well as the biology department and the graduate school. Thanks so much for watching.